We got the look ahead here as maybe one of the biggest games of the year. Dude, this is funny to think about from an Oregon perspective. This is their third giant game of the year, fourth giant game of the year. And I know we hype it up because we're in the area and we
Penn
are
State,
home of the Ducks.
Indiana, Iowa, USC.
Yeah. This is their fourth big game of the year. Now we can sit here and argue about whether Penn State's still a good win or not. I'm kind of a little over that argument. And Iowa is now out of the top 25. Do you think that's not a quality win for Oregon anymore?
No, the SP Plus says
not
the 20th.
Do you think that's not a quality win for USC? No. Okay, that's
we talked about this 2 weeks ago.
That's why I don't want to talk about this Penn State thing. Where's Penn State and SP Plus?
Where were they?
Go look at it.
But no, weren't they like 12th or something like that?
I just saw it. 19th.
19th. There you go.
19th.
Iowa's 12th, I think. I don't think that Penn State win is as good, but that's where I'm at. But Iowa, the only reason that they're 6-4 with their 4 losses, and they were all close games to good teams.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest concern that I have if I'm a USC fan going into this Oregon game is the beginning start against USC or against Iowa.
Yeah.
Same
thing with Notre Dame.
We talked about it with Texas A&M last hour about how impressive it is that they came back. And I don't want to have a double standard on USC by any means in this aspect, but
it's more fun.
It was a lot more concerning USC going down 21-0 than it was 30-3 against South Carolina. And I think it's because Iowa is such a better team than South Carolina is. Mm-hmm. And I kind of mentioned previously, once I saw A&M start to throw the ball in the second half, I was like, "Ooh, this ain't going to be pretty for South Carolina. Mm-hmm. This is going to hurt. This is going to hurt to lose that game."
And that's what USC did with Mayava.
But USC, on a different standpoint, you're kind of like, okay, all right, this is impressive, but I'm very concerned about how it started because the game conditions could be kind of similar against Oregon. And Oregon is going to try to play a little bit. Oregon's brand right now is a little bit Iowa.
Yeah, it's Iowa on steroids.
And it's Iowa on steroids with a real quarterback and real wide receivers, which is kind of a weird thing to say because then it's not really Iowa on steroids. Then it's just a complete good team.
Yeah.
But when Oregon does what Oregon wants to, like from the start of a game, it is physical up front. It's give Davison, Whittington, Hill the ball, establish the run. We'll get to play action, and Dante can make a throw. The way the Iowa game started for USC makes me think that could put USC in trouble early.
They have been slow starters. It happened against Illinois, and it happened against Notre Dame, and it happened against Iowa. That has been their bugaboo for them to battle.
I think one of the scariest things, though, if you're an Oregon fan, is if you push USC up against the wall and they're behind by 2 scores and Mayava's got to start throwing the football, that's when USC shines. Mm-hmm. That's how they came back against Iowa, and you can argue that's because they didn't do that. That's why they lost to Notre Dame. And
it took them until the second half to go. I told you coming in after that game, I was screaming. Like I like Lincoln Riley for the most part. And I like what they're trying to do. They're trying to be more physical. They're trying to run the ball, and they ran the ball okay against Iowa. Iowa's got a really good rush defense. Oregon obviously has a better running attack than USC. There's no doubt about that. But if you go look at where USC's running attack ranks in the country, they're up there. Mm-hmm. They're a good running team. But their superpower is that they have Jaden Mayava, Makai Lemon, and Jacoby Lane. Mm-hmm. And teams just can't deal with that. When USC started to put it on Notre Dame, it was because Mayava just started going, "Hey, Makai Lemon, go get it, dog." And he did over and like Notre Dame's got a great defense. Iowa's got a great defense. You can't cover these guys.
No. And especially, I mean, that's the biggest key. And we'll have Tyson Alger on Wednesday, as we always do, at 10:30. And when we start talking about this game, that's the first question I'm going to ask, because outside of Bryce Betcher, that's a young crew back there. Mm-hmm. That's a really young crew. Now, they've been very, very good for Oregon.
Well, you get Thieneman on the back end, who's a complete stud.
There are some guys there, but there's a lot of youth in that secondary for Oregon. And that's the question that I'm going to want to see. Can they contain? Because you're not going to stop Lemon. No. You're not. The dude's going to get his balls. He's going to get his yards. He's going to have a touchdown.
He's one of the best contested catch guys in the entire NFL, the entirety of college football.
But can you contain him? Because like I said, if Oregon goes out there, I could very much see this scenario. Oregon jumps out to a 14-3 lead.
It's a ball
at
control,
halftime.
and they go, we're just not going to let you have possessions.
Nope. We're gonna run. We're gonna push you up front. The D line and the linebackers are watching. Good schemes from the Oregon defense, and the Oregon offense just run the ball. And Davison has a breakaway. Okay, it's 14-3 at halftime. Now USC is looking, they got to throw the football, and that could be where you live dangerously because Maava has been very, very efficient, and he's not going to throw. I don't expect him to throw a bunch of picks.
No.
But if you're
for a couple weeks ago, he had 3 straight weeks of throwing a pick, and outside of and they were weird picks. They were just like he forgot how to throw the ball type picks, and if you watched him, you're like, what's going on here? But for USC. Oregon's one time that they played a passing attack with a quarterback and wide receivers, Indiana. What happened?
They struggled.
And this is going to be a better version of that.
Is USC's offensive line as good as Indiana's? Because I think that's the difference.
They're more well-rounded, but they're not as deep. If they suffer an injury or they have to sit there and let's say they try to do the thing where they try to run the ball again to try to show how physical they are. That's where I get a little dicey because I think Indiana's. Because remember the talk about that going to that game was Iowa's right tackle's not that good, or Indiana's right tackle's not that good. And what ended up happening?
He dominated for 4 quarters.
So that's the thing is like when I talk about the disruptive plays for Oregon or lack thereof, that's where I wonder it can because if Oregon can be disruptive and get USC off rhythm, they'll win the game. They will but if you let Maava stand back there and you let Makai Lemon route you up, you can call me a homer all you want. If you let Maava stand back there,
we don't have to call you a homer. You are. It's okay.
But if you let Maava stand back there and you let Lemon route you up, they're gonna carve you.
I think you're right. I think that's the only way Oregon wins the game is if they get him off of his method, off of his system.
Well, let's not forget about this. When you look at metrics and stuff, and I think the storyline of the game is USC's offense versus Oregon's defense.
Yes,
that's where the clash of the Titans are. Highly ranked on that side of the ball for each.
But how does Oregon's offense look against USC's
That's
defense?
the question because the gap between that is a lot larger in Oregon's favor than the gap between offense and defense compared to USC and Oregon respectively. And that could be where the problem. If Dante Moore can go out there and throw the rock around, not like he did against Rutgers or Northwestern or Minnesota. But if he can get into a little bit of a rhythm, then that could be the underlying story of the Ducks that would concern me. To the texter that asked the question, if you had to put money on Oregon losing this week against USC or next week at UW, it is easily this week. Yeah. I think the Huskies are toast. They'll win this week because they play UCLA, but maybe not. I don't know. Jetfish.
They did lose to Wisconsin.
They did lose to Wisconsin. I'm completely out on the UW Huskies. I was in on them at the beginning of the year. If they beat UCLA, then they still hit the over. So kudos to them. But I have no fear of UW at all.